All right, guys. Uh, my name's Tejas Narayan, and for my final presentation, I'm doing a project on the hardships of interracial relationships in society. We're going to be delving deeper into the topic of interrace slash cultural relationships around the world. All right, so a little bit of background and just the overall evolution in romantic relationships in society. The evolution of romantic relationships is an ever-changing thing. That's horizons are always being broadened as time goes on. And in specific, the increase of interracial relationships is what I will be focusing on due to the fact that it presses our society to be more accepting and inclusive when it comes to racial equality and romantic relationships as a whole. And so, a little bit of research background. The Pew Research Center conducted a survey on Americans and the thoughts on interracial marriages within their family. And in 2000, 31% of Americans had said that they would be opposed to an interracial marriage, or have someone in their family be opposed to an interracial marriage. And since 2016, that number has dropped to less than 16%, which is an overall 50% decrease. And in addition, they found that Americans without education are more likely to oppose interracial marriage, which is why in my interviews I will be including a question on education level, and also consider that when conducting my own research. Okay, so do black people in interracial relationships experience more or less discrimination in society compared to those who aren't in interracial relationships? So that's kind of what I want you guys to think about as I go on this presentation. I want you guys to keep that question in the back of your mind as you listen to the interviews and the research that I have. And the importance of this is, black people are constantly facing discrimination, and it affects millions of people daily. And interracial relationships are bound to keep increasing, and it's important to educate so people feel accepted and safe in society. And it technically affects everyone because even if you're not a person of color, anyone can be in an interracial relationship, and the families of the people in interracial relationships are affected. So, yeah. And so I thought this was really interesting when I was doing this presentation. I wanted to kind of somehow tie this to an example in media. And as I was working on this, the movie, I don't know if any of you guys have seen it, is called Get Out. It's a very popular horror movie. Um, but in this movie, basically, essentially, this girl Joy, the white woman, has a relationship with Chris here, and they're dating. But as time goes on, he finds out that it was all just a hoax, a fake relationship, and he gets taken back to this estate, and he finds out that these people of color are being lured into almost like a slave role in on the estate. And so it's like, now like obviously this isn't how relationships in society are, because she's faking her love to him to lure him to become a slave for their family. But it sends a message, to the stigmas that are present in, rooted in society and the families of white people when it comes to interracial relationships. And so, yeah, this is also something that you can connect this presentation to, is the film Get Out by Jordan Peele. All right. So, about some of the research I conducted, I interviewed a couple of people. I found multiple credible sources, and I asked them a quick series of questions based on what I thought was the most crucial aspects to interracial relationships, either family, acceptance in society, how they were treated, and a little bit of background on how each person met their significant other. And then I wanted to be realistic with myself, so yeah, I kind of let the interviews speak for themselves, um, and try to do a more conversational tone so that I could, really get out their true experiences. And so these are some of the questions that each interviewee will be asked. What educational background to start, previous romantic history, how did you meet, if they were the first interracial relationship in each other's family, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, and so I want you guys to think about these questions as we go on. So, do you think that interracial relationships should be more widely accepted in society, and how can we bring awareness to that? I want you guys to think about that. Consider your own family. Do you or any of your family oppose interracial relationships? How would they feel if you were to bring someone of a different race back home and introduce them as your girlfriend or boyfriend? And have you seen any discrimination towards interracial relationships in society? And really think back on those times before we watch these interviews. All right, so the first interview is of a guy named Joseph. I had ran into him when I was down in the city. He was with his girlfriend, and so I just thought it was really. I had asked them. I was like, "Yo, do you mind if I interview you?" They were shopping at some thrift store, but I was able to get onto a call with him, and so let's see if I can play this here.
All right, guys.
Yeah, we'll listen.
So we're here with our first interviewee, uh, Joseph. And thank you so much for taking your time to be here. I really appreciate it. Um, so we're gonna ask a couple of questions, and I want you to give your full, honest response as a African man being in an interracial relationship with a white woman. So, yeah, let's get right into it. So the first question is just a simple background question. What is your educational background?
Right. Thank you for asking. First of all, thank you for having me, Tejas, and thank you for asking. Right now, I am a college student, junior at Berkeley University. I am pursuing a degree in business and history and biology, in hopes to, take it onto the medical technology field one day. However, yeah. So that's my educational background as of right now.
That's awesome. And so we ran into each other at a coffee shop down in the city, and you were with your girlfriend. If you don't mind me asking, what do you look for in a partner? What's your previous romantic history?
Right. When it comes to romantic partners, actually, so for my mom's side, it's from Libya, North Africa, and we typically try to stick to people similar to our culture and race. There's not many interracial relationships within this ethnicity. However, I feel as though I've broken the barrier, and I have actually had many different types of relationships in my past. I've had relationships with people of white backgrounds, Latino backgrounds, Latina backgrounds, etc. And yeah, it's been pretty successful to me. I don't really see race as something that's going to stop a relationship. It's actually something that you can develop and learn upon, as interracial mingling is a lot more prevalent and common, especially in today's society, as we have access to so many different racial backgrounds, and we have the ability to expose ourselves to these backgrounds and racial experiences.
That's awesome. Yeah. Are you and her, both families, the first interracial relationship in each other's families?
Are we the both?
That you know
of? Okay. Indeed we are, actually. Okay. Yes, indeed we are. And it is likewise for the both of us. Initially, it was a bit of a shock for both families. I mean, considering it is outside of culture. However, I think for her family, they were a lot more accepting than mine, actually.
Oh, interesting.
But yes.
So it is important to note that his girlfriend is white, and so when you hear her family is more accepting, I just want you guys to think about, are certain cultures more keen on being accepting on these interracial relationships, and is it what you thought it would be? I just want you guys to keep that in mind, because I was pretty surprised by some of the things he was saying. We'll get into it after we watch the full interview, but keep that in mind. Oh.
All right, so I'm gonna.
Sorry about that.
Different racial backgrounds, and we have the ability to expose ourselves to these backgrounds and racial experiences.
That's awesome. Yeah. Um, are you and her, both families, the first interracial relationship in each other's families
Are we the both?
that you know of?
Yes,
Okay.
indeed we are. Actually,
Okay.
yes, indeed we are.
Um,
And it is likewise for the both of us. Initially, it was a bit of a shock for both families. I mean, considering it is outside of the culture. However, I think for her family, it was a lot more. They were a lot more accepting than mine, actually.
oh, interesting.
Funny enough.
Interesting.
But yes.
Yeah, that was my next question. Do you guys face any discrimination from family or friends?
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, after the initial shock phase, everything settled down absolutely, and yeah, our families are both very accepting of each other, and contrarily to racist beliefs, we are able to get along quite well. Both of our families have a beautiful time with each other, and yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. And then another question. This is very open ended, so I want you to just go on a tangent and just tell me your experiences. So have you guys ever gotten your status as a couple confused by others in public? And if you have, what was that like? Just talk about that experience. You know, being at the first person in an interracial relationship firsthand.
Yeah. So by status, you mean as in where we stand?
Status as in like you guys are a couple, you're out in public. Has anyone ever like gotten you guys, mistaken as a couple or like, walked past one of you guys when you guys are, together or only
Yeah.
like gone up to her or you, for example?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it hasn't really happened before with me. Luckily enough, I don't know. I do live in the city, and it's a lot more progressive than I feel like other areas. Actually, with that being said, you do remind me of this one time when we were in Reno, Nevada, which is an area that is not as progressive necessarily as San Francisco. There was a lot of, I'd say, bigoted people, and we were getting a lot of weird looks just because, I'm a darker male with a white female, right? And for some reason, the white people would look at us and they'd be like, hey, this isn't supposed to be happening. I feel they wouldn't be saying this stuff. How their eyes would talk.
It's almost just like, yeah. You can just,
And yeah, it was very uncomfortable. I mean, it is 2025, and it's almost like, how have you never seen this before at this point? And so, that being said, I am very thankful to the location that we live in right now because, yeah, for the most part, I don't really experience much prejudice directly in the city for having an
Right.
Interracial relationship. Sorry, yeah.
yeah, that's an interesting point, being in like location-wise, how other people perceive these interracial relationships. Yeah, that's a great
Yeah,
point that you made.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. Coming out, taking it out of your day to meet up with me over call. It's a shame we couldn't do it in person, but I'm glad I did get your contact and everything.
All right, you guys, that was the end of that interview. Just wanted a huge thanks to Joseph for sharing his experiences to me and all of you guys. I hope you guys appreciated that. So at the end of the interviews, I'm doing a little reflection page. I think it is important so we can recap the ideas that he talked about in the interview. And so I think my main takeaway was the location point that he brought up, and it made me think. So I went on and did my own research on the topic. So while him and his partner travel outside the Bay Area, which is a very progressive location, they face a lot more societal discrimination, and so I did some research, and according to the Census Government website page, I quote, research shows that the West has the highest percentage of interracial couples. And so, when you think about it, the West being considering Oregon, California, all down the coast, Washington even. I mean, you really, you really can think about what you see, especially in the main the main big cities like San Francisco and Portland. You see a lot of this diversity, but if you were to think if you were to think more of like the the Midwest, I feel like you would not see a lot of uh, the same things that you would see compared to California. What something that really surprised me was the same source stated that results regarding marriages between blacks and whites show that they were most prevalent in the South, primarily in counties in Virginia, Maryland, and the District of Columbia, which was something I was super surprised to see. But I guess it makes sense. Um, thinking back to the time of where slavery originated and everything. But yeah, I think that's also something to keep in mind when thinking about these interracial relationships is geographical location, guys. All right. So for this second interview, I'm super super lucky to have in contact with Dr. Gentry Patrick. So he's a neurobiology professor at the University of San Diego, and he's an amazing, accomplished person. I've known him for quite some time. Unfortunately, he was driving to LA from San Diego, and he couldn't get on a Zoom call with me, but I was able to get him on the phone and record our entire conversation. I was a little nervous, but he's I seriously recommend you guys look into more about his story, and he's got a bunch of great videos, and he also does some research on race and diversity in science, which I thought was pretty neat. But yeah, a little bit of background on him. He was in a relationship, and it was an interracial relationship that ended up in a divorce. He has a couple of kids though. And just hearing his experience was pretty cool and unique because he offers a super super unique background onto this topic. So yeah, I'm gonna click here, and you should hear our voices. So let's listen to this.
All right, so I'm gonna ask you like a series of questions, and then you can just answer them like honestly and truthfully, just from a first-hand perspective of being in that relationship.
Okay.
So first question is, what's your educational background and your upbringing? Where you're from and everything.
Okay, so I am from South Central LA. I grew up in Compton and Watts. I grew up in a family where I was the first person to go to college. But I took a liking to the educational system as a means to not only learn, but also kind of drive my own change and opportunity, of course, with a lot of luck also. But anyway, I went to Berkeley for undergrad. I went to Harvard for my PhD, and then I did a postdoc after my PhD at Caltech. And I started in 2004, I became an assistant professor in neurobiology at the University of California, San Diego. I've been there ever since, and now I'm a full professor 21 years in. I've had a lab, I do research. I'm a molecular neuroscientist, basically, and I've enjoyed my time in academia.
That's awesome. And if you don't mind me asking, like, what was your previous, romantic history, like, throughout school and everything, and, like, what did you look for in a partner in society, especially, like, the people, like, surrounding you in school, were the people that you were around most, I assume, so, like, what would
Right.
you look in a person?
Interestingly, well, I guess that's not the right word to say. I would say, for me, and I think it's unique for others, but I probably fit in a category that others also fit in. But I just wanted to find someone who had the same type of ambition as me, and
and uh, that would be a motivating factor not only for myself, but I could also be that for them.
Right.
And that's when I met Mimi's, I'm not supposed to use names, but I met my daughter's mom, and we had a very similar, interesting, trajectory
Right.
in our interest in school, in science and medicine.
And were you two the first or only interracial relationship in each other's families?
I don't know about her, but for me, yes. My family was very. We didn't have any people who were in interracial relationships.
Like they would like date within culture. So like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Typical. Yeah. Typically, there may have been a few that I don't know about, but yeah.
Do you think like your family did you face any like judgment or the discrimination between family and friends, or were they were pretty accepting and open to everything?
It was just different. So I would say they were open to anything I did as long as I was moving forward and being positive within my life journey. And within a very short time, I was already moving well beyond what my family had already achieved in terms of education.
Mm-hmm.
So, most people were generally positive. I had a few friends who did not agree with me being in an interracial relationship. And in society back then, as a new person in that, it was very much, it was new, and we were definitely an out, people noticed and would make comments. We were noticeable. But at some point, you stop feeling the eyes and the stares and things like that, because you're just living your own life.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of all I have, but you're a great girl. Thank you so much.
All right, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That was kind of weird, but.
All right. Obviously, he wasn't the most comfortable. It can be a sensitive topic to talk about these things. But, yeah, seriously, the guy, he's an awesome, awesome guy who basically overcame a lot of, adversity he pushed through. And, after speaking with him, it made me definitely a little more aware, especially, when it came to culture. He grew up in South LA in Compton, which is, a predominantly black area. But, as he stated, he'd already done so much. He had already surpassed his family's expectations by so much when it came to education and success that, they were pretty accepting, to almost anything he was doing, as long as, he was happy and pushing forward. But he did mention how a lot of his friends were, a little taken back and made some, comments. But, then again, right, in society, you have all, there's so many people that have opinions. It's going to be inevitable, but I think this whole educating and informing so that people can, feel a little more accepted is super important. And, that's what he does best. He said that as time went on, he learned just not to care what other people thought. And, the stares don't matter as much, like he said. And so, in conclusion, I just wanted to review some key ideas. Some of the black males in interracial relationships feel some sort of discomfort either between friends, family, or society. Given not all of them, but We can say, I guess, a solid percentage of the black males. And the idea of interracial marriage and dating is becoming more of a common thing, which I think is a good thing because it is inevitable, and in society it's going to keep increasing and happening, and it affects almost everyone's lives, whether you are a part of the interracial relationship, family, friends, whatnot. And also, location plays a role on depending how society perceives these interracial relationships due to more progressive and less progressive areas of society. I think this is a super interesting and important point that applied for both interviews, and I think applied to a lot more other people, just because of how different society is in different areas. I think it can it can make a huge difference on how people perceive these sort of things. And so, yeah, overall consensus. I want to swing back to the question of, do black people in interracial relationships experience more or less discrimination in society compared to those who aren't? And I think for the most part, it can be answered as yes. And so now there will always be exceptions in society, and how people are treated. But as a whole, I think that black people in interracial relationships do experience more discrimination than white on white relationships. Due to the lack of the education and acceptance in society, and just the overall rooted racism in society. I think they face a lot more discrimination than others. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. It was super fun to do this project. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did making it. And yeah, thank you guys so much. Here's my works cited.